Two men, 1,800 years apart, both awake before dawn. One is in a tent on a frozen frontier, writing notes to himself by lamplight that he never intends anyone to read. He is the most powerful man in the world. He is also sick, exhausted, and at war with an enemy he cannot finish. The other is in a house he paid for with blood, in a city full of smoke, awake because sleep does not come and has not come for years. He is the most powerful man in his world. He is also sick, exhausted, and at war with an enemy he cannot finish. Both men have the same rare skill, total command of themselves. Neither shows what he feels, neither reacts, neither lets another person see the inside of his head. One of them dies at peace. The other is destroyed by the exact discipline that built him. This channel has already made the case that Thomas Shelby is a Stoic. 7 reasons, and every one of them holds. He does not react. He has accepted death. He controls rooms with silence. All true. This is the other half of that argument, because the traits are not the philosophy. Marcus Aurelius is the control group, and putting the two men side by side exposes the one difference that decides whether this kind of self-control saves a man or eats him alive. It is not how much discipline you have, it is what you point it at. Start where they look most alike. Marcus Aurelius wrote about death constantly, not occasionally, constantly. You could leave life right now, he told himself, and let that determine what you do and say and think. He wrote it in a war camp, surrounded by plague, having already buried most of his children. Thomas Shelby says something that sounds identical. A man holds a gun to his head and he closes his eyes and says he has been dead since France. Same fact. Both men have looked directly at their own death and stopped flinching. Now watch what each one does with it. For Marcus, death is what gives the present its weight. Because the hour is limited, the hour matters. Because you might not finish the sentence, say the true thing now. Death makes him more careful with people, not less. More present, not less. The entire purpose of remembering that you will die is to stop wasting the part where you are alive. For Thomas Shelby, death is an exit from consequence. If he is already dead, nothing can be taken from him, because nothing is his. If he is already dead, fear has no grip on him, but neither does anything else. A man who is already dead does not need to protect a future because he does not believe he has one. One of them uses death to hold on to life. The other uses it to let go of it. That is the first crack. It widens. The Stoics had a word for the composure both men have. Apatheia. It does not mean numbness. That distinction is this entire video. Apatheia means freedom from the passions that drag a person into acting badly. Not the absence of feeling, the absence of being ruled by feeling. The Stoic still grieves. He simply does not let grief make his decisions for him. Marcus lost a wife of 30 years, he lost child after child, and in his private notebook, the one place where he had no audience and no reason to perform, he does not pretend that it did not hurt. He writes about the pain. Then he reasons with it. He feels the thing, examines it, and decides what it actually deserves. Thomas Shelby does not do that. Watch him take the worst news of his life. His face does not move, not because he has processed it, because he has sealed it. There is no examination. There is no notebook. The feeling goes into the same place every other feeling has gone, the lid goes back on, and he walks into the next room and does business. That is not apatheia. That is a pressure vessel. And a pressure vessel has a rating. Everything he refuses to feel is still in there. It comes out sideways later, in the opium, in the sleeplessness, in the violence he cannot always explain to himself afterwards. Same still face, completely different machine behind it. Both men are isolated at the top, and both of them chose it. Marcus is surrounded by a court that wants something from him. He cannot fully trust the Senate or his generals, or eventually even his own co-commander. So he does something strange for a man with absolute power. He writes to himself. That is what the meditations are. Not a book. A private argument conducted nightly by a man trying to stay decent in a job that corrodes decency. He is alone, so he builds a second person out of ink to keep himself honest. Thomas Shelby is alone for the same structural reason. Everyone near him wants something. Information is leverage, so he releases none of it. Not to his brother, not to his aunt, not to his wife, but he does not build anything to replace the company he refuses. He simply goes quiet. And here's the difference that matters. Marcus is alone and keeps auditing himself. Shelby is alone and stops being audited by anyone. Nobody left in his life can tell him he is wrong, because nobody left in his life holds enough of the picture to know that he is. A man who answers to no one is not free. He is unsupervised. The Stoics were clear that solitude is a tool and not a residence. Marcus retreats into himself and comes back out. Shelby retreats into himself and stays. Marcus Aurelius spent most of his reign in physical misery. Chronic stomach trouble, chest pain, barely sleeping, dosing himself with the medicine of his day. He ran a plague and 2 wars from a body that was failing underneath him. Thomas Shelby was a tunneler. He spent his war underground in the dark, digging beneath other men's trenches, waiting to find out whether the roof or the enemy would arrive first. He came out with shrapnel, with nightmares, and with a version of himself that never fully left the tunnel. Both endured, neither complained. But listen to what each one does with the wound. Marcus treats his body as a fact to be worked around. It hurts, the work still needs doing, and the pain is not an argument against the work. There is nothing heroic in his notes about it. It is almost boring. That is the tell. He has genuinely stopped negotiating with it. Shelby wears the wound. The war is his credential. It is the reason he is harder than the men across the table, and he makes sure they know it. The scar is not something he carries. It is something he deploys. The moment your suffering becomes part of your case for why you deserve to win, you have stopped enduring it and started spending it. And anything you spend, you need more of. If this is worth your time so far, drop a like. It genuinely helps. Now we reach the part where the 2 men separate completely. Neither man chose the throne he ended up on. Marcus was selected, groomed, and handed an empire he never campaigned for. There is no evidence that he wanted it. There is considerable evidence that he found it exhausting. And in his notebook he writes a warning to himself that is one of the strangest things any ruler has ever recorded. Take care that you are not turned into a Caesar. Do not be dyed by the purple. Sit with that for a moment. The emperor is afraid of becoming the emperor. He understands that the office is a die, and that a man left sitting in it long enough will take the color. Thomas Shelby also did not set out to run an empire. He set out to protect a family in a poor part of a hard city. Then the thing grew. Then it needed defending. Then defending it required becoming someone capable of defending it. Nobody warned him about the die, or rather, people warned him repeatedly, and by then he had already lost the ability to hear it. By the time he holds the company, the seat in parliament, the honor pinned to his chest, he is no longer a man who owns an empire. He is a man the empire is wearing. Marcus kept a nightly note to himself, precisely so that this would not happen to him. Shelby kept no such note, so nobody ever checked, including him. This is the test that settles it. Give each man exactly what he says he wants and watch what he does next. Marcus wins. The frontier holds. The rebellion against him collapses before it ever reaches him. And there is no celebration anywhere in the record of his own mind, because winning was never the point. The point was to do the thing correctly. A Stoic aims at the quality of his own action, because that is the only part fully his. The result belongs to the world. Which means that when the result arrives, he is already finished with it. There is nothing left to chase. Now give Thomas Shelby a win. He gets the money. Then he needs the legitimacy. He gets the legitimacy. Then he needs the seat. He gets the seat. Then he needs a bigger enemy. Every single victory produces the next war within minutes. That is not ambition. Ambition can be satisfied. This is a man who built his entire self on the act of fighting, and who therefore cannot afford peace. Because peace would leave him alone in a quiet room with everything he sealed shut. He does not want the war. He needs it. The day the war stops is the day he has to feel all of it. So here it is, one difference. Everything else follows from it. Both men point enormous discipline at something. Marcus points his at becoming good. Shelby points his at winning. That sounds like a small distinction. It is the whole thing. Virtue is a target you can actually reach because it lives entirely inside you. You can be just and honest and temperate today in this room, regardless of what anybody else does. The Stoics called everything else indifferent, not unimportant, simply not the measure of you. Victory is a target that moves. It depends on other people, on circumstance, on what your rivals decide to do next. You can never finally hold it, because someone can always take it back. So a man who measures himself by victory has signed up for a task that cannot be completed. And self-discipline in service of an impossible task does not produce peace. It produces a machine that cannot be switched off. This is why all 7 of those Stoic traits can be genuinely true of Thomas Shelby, and he still is not a Stoic. He has the mechanism. He does not have the aim. The discipline is a tool. It is morally neutral. It will make you exactly as good or as hollow as the thing you built it for. Marcus Aurelius died on a frontier of illness at 58, still working. By every account, he was calm at the end. His notebook simply stops. There is no final speech in it because he had been rehearsing the ending quietly for 20 years and did not need one. Thomas Shelby ends his story riding away from everything he built and setting the last of it on fire behind him. That is the honest scoreboard. 2 men, 1 discipline, opposite ends. And here is the uncomfortable part. Shelby is the more impressive of the 2 on the way up. He is faster, sharper, and much harder to beat. If you are choosing who to imitate based on the first 10 years, you choose him, and you are not being stupid to do it. The method works. It simply does not stop working when you want it to. So keep the mechanism. Genuinely, the stillness in a hard room, the refusal to be dragged around by a feeling, the willingness to look at your own death without flinching. Those are worth having, and they are difficult to build. Just do not skip the question Marcus asked himself every night in that tent. The one Thomas Shelby never asked once. What is all of this control actually for? Answer that badly, and you get a man who wins everything and can sleep through none of it. Answer it well, and you get a man who can finally put the work down.